The dream is to eradicate polio from the face of the earth by Rotary's 100th year. A dream adopted by Rotarians the world over. A dream that is now in sight. In 1985, they pledged to provide a 5-year supply of polio vaccine to any developing country that needed it. And they committed the manpower to help immunize the world's children against polio and 5 other childhood diseases. Working in concert with the World Health Organization, UNICEF, the Pan American Health Organization, and national governments, Rotarians helped achieve a milestone in 1991. The year that 80% of the world's newborns had been immunized against polio, measles, diphtheria, tetanus, tuberculosis, and pertussis.
Rotarians can be justly proud of the effort they've made so far. Without Rotary's encouragement and commitment, it's clear the World Health Organization would not have set the polio eradication goal for the year 2000. In 1985, there were only 75 polio-free countries. Today, there are more than 115. But we still face formidable challenges if we are to reach the ultimate goal of total eradication of polio. That means no family in the future will ever have to worry about polio. 120,000 children a year are still being crippled by this disease. That's 350 children a day, every day. Vaccine costs are rising dramatically, and studies show that in some areas more doses of vaccine per child are needed. Unforeseen economic and political changes are also making the job more difficult. For example, take the problems presented by countries like Nigeria.
One of every 4 Africans is a Nigerian, and of the almost 100 million people in this country, only about a third live in cities. The rest are farmers or fishermen who live in difficult-to-reach outlying areas. Nigeria's terrain is varied, and it's hot here. In many areas, the temperature averages 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Much of the country is inaccessible by road, and adult literacy, especially among women, is low. Nonetheless, by 1990, about 80% of Nigeria's children had received 3 doses of polio vaccine, an achievement greatly assisted by Rotary's social mobilization efforts and volunteer doctors.
I would say the program in Nigeria success has been achieved because it went outside and beyond the health ministry. The private sector, where the Rotarians played a big role.
But eradicating polio in Nigeria will take extraordinary effort. Freezers in state stores keep the polio vaccine cold. When it leaves here for a remote village, it's packed in a cold box, the critical link in the cold chain. Heat will ruin the vaccine. The vaccine is carried to remote villages by any means available. This man donated his motorcycle to the cause. In this climate, time is limited. Under these conditions, anything can happen. He has only 6 hours before the vaccine is useless.
One of the major problems of maintaining an efficient cold chain system to protect the vaccines until when they enter human body is the climatic conditions of Africa.
Everything is hard here. Roads are often poor, and vehicles are badly maintained. Parts are unavailable. Gas is scarce. Anything can go wrong, and it often does. Sometimes pure luck and a good Samaritan are the only way to get there in time.
Thank you.
The second team of volunteers waits at the river. Many villages cannot be reached by road. In this case, dugout canoes are the only way. So the fragile vaccine begins the second leg of its perilous journey. There's no time left to lose. They land as close to the village as possible. Now they walk the rest of the way. The villagers know they're coming and patiently wait. Today, these children will be vaccinated. Today, the cold chain worked. In 1985, Rotarians began this program to vaccinate the world's children against polio. By 1992, they had raised $240 million for the effort. They had supplied the vaccine they promised, and they had mobilized volunteers like these the world over. No matter how difficult the challenge, they're determined to succeed. Finding the children who haven't been vaccinated is also hard. So Rotary has mobilized a force of 20,000 community volunteers who keep immunization records and help locate babies who need the vaccine. Nigeria hopes to reach the final stages of polio eradication by 1995. To do so, it needs a steady supply of vaccine, additional cold boxes, and the help of Rotary clubs in other countries. One man in Nigeria has dedicated his life to making the dream come alive. Michael Okwechime.
Polio Plus Nigeria has made a great impact in the immunization program in Nigeria. And for this, we're very grateful to Rotary International. But most Rotarians thought that Polio Plus was fundraising, and they think that now they have raised the fund, it was over. The truth is, it is not over. Polio Plus is a campaign to immunize the children of the world against the deadly diseases, and in particular to eradicate polio from the face of the earth. We have not gone halfway yet, and there's still a lot to be done. And I would like to use this medium to urge all Rotarians to put greater effort so that we can eradicate polio by the turn of the century.
So you can see the challenge that lies ahead. But Africa is not alone. Spiraling population growth and poverty in other parts of the world present their own unique challenges.
This is New Delhi, the capital of India, where wide tree-lined boulevards, beautiful gardens, and ornate temples belie the extreme poverty of the city's slums. This is the other Delhi. Here, 250,000 people live in a quarter of a square mile, without sanitation, without medical care. Almost half of the world's children who are afflicted by polio live in India, and many who could be saved are lost among the desperately poor masses. There are no addresses here, no permanent homes, just an ever-changing array of people who are trying to survive. This is life for many of India's 900 million people. Yet since Polio Plus began in 1985, India has raised vaccination levels from 7% to a reported 93%. Today is October 6, 1991, National Immunization Day. In the slums of New Delhi and throughout all of India, Rotarians and government health workers will try to reach the children who so desperately need them. Today, Rotary clubs will tend to the children in neighborhoods they have adopted. Rotarians, their wives, and community volunteers will seek out the unprotected, record the names of those who come to the vaccination center, and soothe worried mothers.
The health workers will be administering the vaccine. On the other hand, the Rotarians, first, some of them would go to house to inform about the vaccination. They'll bring the children, they bring the mothers. There's another group of Rotarians or their wives or the other volunteers, Rotaractors. They would organize these children, and then another set of inner wheel members, Rotarians' wives, would register the cause. They will tell the mothers, don't get worried if the child gets fever. Make sure you come again next month.
But getting mothers to bring their children again is still more difficult. Records are kept to keep track of the number of vaccine doses each child has received, and the mothers are given cards to remind them of the next vaccination day. But if they don't show up, they'll be hard to find again. Tracking children here is a backbreaking challenge, a challenge that Rotarians are determined to meet. These efforts have lowered the incidence of polio in India by 2/3 in the past 5 years, and it's Rotarians who have made the difference.
They began by looking at the program more as people who raised funds, but over the last 4 years, they have really transcended that role and now are in partnership with government, people who are there to lend a helping hand.
Nowhere are Rotarians more enthusiastic about achieving the goals of Polio Plus than in India. They're determined to succeed, and their enthusiasm is critical to keeping political interest in a common goal alive.
The common goal of polio eradication has met with its greatest success so far in the Americas, where only 9 cases were confirmed in 1991. Ironically, it's here that complacency is the greatest threat. Just one undetected case could set progress back on its heels.
La Paz, high in the mountains of Bolivia, hasn't had a confirmed case of polio in several years. It's cool here. Population density is low, and Rotarians are working with the Pan American Health Organization to develop a surveillance system. But at least 5 years must pass without a single confirmed case before the region can be considered polio-free. One day, a child in the town of Oruro gets sick. He has a sore throat and a fever. He's been vomiting and his muscles are stiff. Thanks to a door-to-door campaign by Rotarians, his mother knows these symptoms and immediately calls a local health worker. He suspects the worst. It could well be polio. To be sure, he gets a sample of the child's stool. The sample is rushed to the nearest laboratory. It's carefully packed for air shipment to the Centers of Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, USA, the world's authority on communicable diseases. Is it polio? Until they know for sure, they must assume that it is. It's a question of epidemic proportions. And the answer lies thousands of miles away in a laboratory in the United States. So no one can wait for the answer before taking action. There's no time to lose. Rotarians immediately begin calling doctors and health officials, warning them of the suspected case.
If a country reports a suspected or confirmed case of polio, the medical response should be immediate to avoid its spread throughout the population in the vicinity where the case was detected. This is very important because this is a disease which spreads rapidly, and therefore every measure must be taken to ensure that this does not occur.
Air couriered from Bolivia, the sample arrives in Atlanta. A special messenger picks it up at the airport and rushes it through the city and to the CDC, where the people who can provide the answer are waiting. Finally, it arrives in the laboratory of Olin Q.
My laboratory is involved in several aspects of polio control. One is surveillance, and in this case I mean virologic surveillance, looking for the wild virus. The reason we do that is because there are many causes of paralytic illness beyond wild virus infection. So we look for the wild virus because that's what we're trying to control.
In Bolivia, there's no time to lose. Rotarians have already called in hundreds of volunteers, local high school students who are ready to swing into action. And at the CDC, the best and the brightest scientists apply the latest technology to the problem. Working day and night, only they can determine whether the virus is polio and whether it's wild. Training programs for the Bolivian volunteers have begun, run by experienced Rotarians and local health officials. Once their training is complete, the massive mop-up campaign begins. Volunteers go door to door, systematically finding every child, interviewing mothers, vaccinating everyone they find under the age of 5. And at the CDC, Olin Q is closing in on the answer. Not a single child can be missed. No one can take the chance that this might not be polio. Parents are questioned about their children's health. If no one's home, the door is marked to remind workers to return. No one can escape this flawless net. No stone is left unturned. All these children will be protected today. But for the little child who's sick in bed, it may be too late. The verdict's not yet in. His future lies here, in a computer at the CDC. The time to know has finally come. This time the answer is negative. This time it isn't polio.
Hello, this is Dr. Q at CDC. Since my involvement with the eradication program for polio, I've seen Polio Plus go from a dream that we might be able to eradicate this disease, something which has been with humankind for more than 3,000 years, to a reality in one part of the world and great confidence that the task can be completed elsewhere in the world.
And so for today, the children of Oruro are safe. If it had been polio, the isolated case would already be contained. For now, the children have been immunized and the crisis is over. But local Rotarians will remain on guard, ever watchful for the symptoms that could herald polio once again. Here in the Americas, we have proof positive that we can win the battle against polio. But to achieve the goal, we must help other countries develop comprehensive surveillance systems. And we must support those systems with a network of local laboratories. Most of all, the flow of vaccine must not be interrupted. These are the challenges that Rotarians are helping us meet the world over every day, everywhere, dedicating their lives to the dream of a world that no longer lives in fear of polio.
I'm proud to say the dream is in sight. The specter of polio no longer haunts half of the world's children. Millions of parents no longer live in the fear that their child will suffer the crippling effects of this dread disease. And it's your dedication, your selfless devotion to our dream that is helping to make the eradication of polio a reality. UNICEF is proud to be a partner in this effort with Rotary International. I thank you for alleviating the suffering of children. I also beg you to resist complacency. The dream is in sight, but there's still a long road ahead before polio is a distant memory. You can participate whether you live in a developed or a developing country. Please continue to be advocates for child immunization. Your determination to achieve the dream will bring it to life. From Seattle to Santiago, from Bogota to Bombay, and everywhere in between, the children of the world are waiting. They are the hope of the future, and you are their hope that the future will be bright.